Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I'm going to be interviewing a comedy legend that is sadly forgotten, but not forgotten by me and a lot of you who grew up in the 80s watching not necessarily the news on HBO. I'm interviewing Lucy Webb. Oh, I cannot believe I'm going to be talking to Lucy Webb. It's going to be so awesome. I grew up watching her on that show. It was one of the funniest, most irreverent, biting sketch comedy shows ever. And I'm going to be talking to her today, talk about what she's been up to since, her beginnings. She was even married to Kevin Pollak for a little while, too, and stuff. And talk about some of her credits, her influences, and all that stuff. And I can't believe it. It's going to be pretty cool. I mean, she's a very funny lady, and it's just, I don't think she gets the respect that she deserves as a sketch comedy artist and stuff. And I was glad that I got to track her down and find her on Facebook through our mutual friends and stuff. So, here is my interview with Lucy Webb. Hi, Lucy.
Yes.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you, Tommy?
I am great. Welcome to the show. Oh, it's such an honor because, being a kid growing up in the 80s, watching not necessarily the news and being a stand-up comedian, and I feel like a kid in a candy store, and I'm so appreciative. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm happy to do it. You've had so many great female comedians on.
Yeah, I've been very lucky. I'll tell you, I've been struggling stand-up comedy for years out in the Bay Area and stuff, and to meet these wonderful comedians and find out that I'm actually funny, it's just, it's great.
That's great. Wonderful. I'm so glad you enjoyed not necessarily the news. That's always nice to hear. It's been off for a long time, but there's a lot of shows now that, you see NNTN's influence because a lot of shows now are doing similar things that we used to do. And so it kind of still lives on, but we still have people, everybody in the cast, we have people come up to us all the time. We just lost one cast member, Danny Green, who was brilliant.
Yeah.
And a true genius, worked a lot with Second City before we had the graces that he, not necessarily news, to be able to work with him, it was a real treat. We just lost him this year. So it's been sad for all of us that did not necessarily news together. But we know he's up there somewhere looking over us, still working, still making us laugh.
Yeah. So, in the beginning, though, did you know at an early age that you were funny?
Did I know I was funny? That's interesting. I think so. I think I did. It was when you're a funny person, you can only gauge that by when people are laughing. And, something that you do, if you find people laughing, and I found at an early age that people just tended to laugh with me. And so I guess I knew I was funny, but I don't think I was trying to make a great effort to, get the laugh. I think I was just living life, and people found me funny.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So, you're a country girl, of course.
I grew up in Tennessee, so, and I grew up outside the outskirts of Nashville in a small town. It was a college town, actually. So, yes, Tennessee, I would consider that the country.
Yeah, I love country girls because in public they act like such ladies, but in private they are dirty-minded freaks.
Well, I wouldn't say that, but okay, I'll run with that.
All the ones I know, especially the ones from Texas.
The Texas girls. Well, that's interesting. I've got Ted Cruz down there, and I don't know if anybody really says what they really mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's subjective, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so did you watch like Carol Burnett and stuff and get
I
bit?
watched Carol Burnett. She was a huge influence on me. Lily Tomlin was a huge influence on me. Lily actually came to the university where I attended, and she did a show. I
Mm-hmm.
sat on the front row, and she had a manager that later went on to manage a lot of female comedians that I knew. She recently passed away. Her name was Irene Penn. But I still see Lily and run into her. And yes, but those were huge influences on me. In college, Saturday Night Live just came on television.
Mm-hmm.
That was very, excuse me, sneezing, allergies. That was
Yeah.
a big, I wouldn't say influence, but I felt part of that zeitgeist. That's what we were all kind of doing at the time. A lot of parody, observation, sarcasm. That was all sort of happening in that period. So, but growing up, yes, Phyllis Diller, Johnny Carson, I would watch every single night.
Mm-hmm.
I'd stay up late. Lily, Carol, yeah, big influences.
Nice. Now, I couldn't find much research on you, so I'd like to ask, did you start out in stand-up comedy?
I would say more. I started in theater. I was in New York, and I immediately got into stand-up, but I was also studying at Carnegie Hall acting, and I was studying at the New School, and I had come out of, high school and college doing a lot of more theatrical productions, and in high school I did a tremendous amount of theater, and then I went on kind of torn between politics and performing. But when I got to New York, I started doing stand-up while I was working at the Provincetown Playhouse, and was doing really both.
Or were you at Catch a Rising Star and the Improv and all that?
Of course.
Who was there at that time?
Who was there?
Yeah, comedians.
Everybody in that period. Richard Belzer, Bill Maher,
Mm-hmm.
Pat Benatar at the time.
Yeah.
Jerry Seinfeld, Paul Reiser, Larry Grove. Everybody on the scene was performing at Catch a Rising Star, and was performing at the Comic Strip and the Improv and Dangerfield, and just gigs all over town. I did about 6 gigs a night there for a while.
Wow.
6 sets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you did them in the snow and the rain, and it's very interesting. You got a cab, you got a bus, you got on the subway, and you went all over town in New York City. So, that was just the way it was, and you were walking home at about 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
Doing the day job. Then after the day job, waiting until 9 o'clock and doing early sets, and then just kept doing sets all over town.
Yeah. They're all in walking distance and all that.
No, not at all. They weren't walking distance. Sometimes they were, like the Comic Strip and Catch weren't too far away.
Mm-hmm.
But, if you were at the Comic Strip and you had to go down to Hell's Kitchen to do the Improv, then come back on the east side to Catch a Rising Star. It just depended on what your sets, how they laid out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, today's there's a lot more comedy clubs in New York now and stuff, and places that have open mic nights and stuff. I know a lot of them down there are in walking distance. That's why.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was still like that back then. But it wasn't then.
No, it depends. It depends on where you were performing. You had Dangerfield, you had Good Times, you had places in the Village. It depended on where your set was. Whether and you got in a cab and when the strike took place for comedians to get paid,
Mm-hmm.
New York comedians got $6 cab fare. That's what we got. Used to be, when I was doing stand up, nobody got paid, and nobody got cab fare. You
Yeah.
were basically paying club owners. You were putting your own money in just to get a spot on stage. And that's the way it was way before I started doing stand-up. And then when the strike took place around 78, 79, they started striking for performers to get paid. And New York paid $6 cab fare. So every time you did a set, you got $6.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
How old are you, Tommy?
I'm 35.
Well, there you go. See, that was when we were doing stand-up. All the Catskill comics would come down, and they would tell us their war stories, and we couldn't believe them. You know, we thought, oh, those guys. And now we're those people. We're in our 60s, and we're telling the stories when we only made $6. And as Leno says, we had to eat dirt.
Yeah, we're still getting $6. It hasn't changed.
Oh, that hasn't changed. Oh, that's interesting.
Well, you know, after the strike happened, you know, there was a period where all comedians in one showcase were getting paid around the same amount because those clubs were making a lot of money. But then by the time social media came, you know, they started measuring, you know, how much money comics were going to make depending on their social media popularity, which I think is just BS, you know.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I haven't done stand-up in so many years, but certainly I know that what happened in the 80s, it just was the comedy explosion, and
Yeah.
clubs started opening everywhere. And when that happened, it did not help comedy. It really hurt comedy. And in many ways, people were headlining that really were not ready to be headliners, and it
Yep.
became like vaudeville. It killed itself. It was an animal that just ate itself. And that's kind of sad, but it went away, I think, for a while. But I think comedy is roaring back now. I think you're seeing a lot of people rise like you did in the 80s.
Oh yeah, I mean it's still like that though. There are a lot of people headlining that aren't ready yet, but it's come back, you know. And I've gone to the Comedy Store recently, and it's just you know, busy over there because it wasn't busy there for a lot of years.
Well, if you think about it, you know, stage time is a rare commodity in Los Angeles. There's not a lot of places that you can get up and perform and have everyone look at you and have people in the industry look at you for, you know, 20 minutes, 15 minutes. And it's kind of a rare thing, and there's only so many spots per night, so if you get one, you're a lucky lad or lass indeed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and back in those days, there was a lot of actors who were using the stand-up stage as a back door into acting, and you know, they had their 10 minutes or whatever and got on TV, and then, you know, got into movies. And nowadays, if you do that nowadays and you admit to doing that and stuff, oh, your comedy career will be dead because they're like, this guy is not passionate about stand-up. He's just doing it so he can be in movies, you know.
Oh, it's interesting. It's interesting. I can tell you that there were a lot of people that they didn't really use it to be seen, but that they loved what they were doing. The industry came in and saw them and tried to see how they could monetize their act. And some people would come in and from networks and say, that person belongs in a sitcom, or that person belongs on film. And so it was just by kind of a process that the industry told them what they would pay them for, what they would do with them, and they went on to films, or they went on to television, or they went on to something.
Right.
Not because they were using it as just a showcase, but it was just where they could make money, and then it was just sort of was a process.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people went back and still continued to do stand-up, even if they were doing sitcoms.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Your first movie was Full Moon High.
That's so funny. I haven't thought of that in so long. But yes, I came out here actually to do that movie with Bob Saget, my comedy partner, Cheryl Henry. It was produced by Larry Cohen.
Yep.
And Ed McMahon was in it. And who else was in it? I remember Bob Saget and Ed McMahon. But, yes, that was like the very first thing I did out here in LA.
Yeah, Alan Arkin's son Adam is the star of it.
Adam was in it. That's right. It's perfectly horrible film.
I love it, though. I love everything that Larry Cohen has ever done, and I actually met him at a horror convention last year. He's the embodiment of an artist with low self-esteem, because I was giving him compliments, and he was just shrugging them off. Please don't. I don't take praise very well.
What a nice guy.
Yeah, he was a nice guy, and he was really funny. But, yeah, so you were like a passenger on a plane or something?
I was a passenger on a plane. I think I had a chicken in my lap or something. I can't remember. I mean, that's been, about 35 years ago.
Yeah, it's been about 12 years since I saw the movie. I can't even remember that. But I'll watch it again eventually and stuff. And then you got a role on the TV series version of Private Benjamin.
Yes, I did. I auditioned for that, and that was probably one of my first things. The first thing I did was a movie of the week called A Few Days at Eagle Creek for CBS.
Uh-huh.
And from that movie, I got an audition for Private Benjamin, and I got the part on that.
Nice. And you were working with a lot of heavyweights on there, like Eileen Brennan and Lorna Patterson.
Yeah, both of them great. Eileen Brennan was really, that was a highlight in my career to be able to work with her. She was really something to watch, and a consummate performer and wonderful actress. And Lorna, of course, was wonderful too. We became friends. We took trips to Hawaii together, and she's a wonderful singer and vocalist, and now she's married to Michael Lindback.
Oh yeah, she is. That's right. And Hal Williams was on there.
Hal, great, yeah, wonderful people. Andy Ryerson,
Yep.
Horatio, Davida Joe Freeman, Joel Brooks, Barbara Berry. We had a wonderful cast.
Yep. And Ryerson, of course, is a member of Second City in Chicago.
Yes, Andy Ryerson, right. Big member of Second City.
Yeah, it's a great cast.
He was one of the judges in Minority Report.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Forgot about that. Then comes, not necessarily the news, and how did this show come into your life?
Not necessarily the news came into my life. They were looking for a cast member. They had one cast member that was leaving, Audrey Neiman, who I did in the Comedy Store Players, and she's another unbelievably talented person from Second City, fabulous actress.
Mm-hmm.
We actually did a play together called Perfect Timing in Los Angeles, and I just adore her. She was leading the show, and I had a friend who was writing on the show, Elaine Pope, and she recommended me to the producers, John Moffat and Pat Turkley. And I went in and auditioned, and then I got called back, and I go through a series of calls back, and I got the part.
Wow. That was shot in L.A.?
Yeah, we shot it in L.A. And I was on that for about 9 years.
Yeah, I was on for a long time. I remember, I was born in 83, like around the time the show started, but like I remember, like as early as 2 years old, I remember seeing it on HBO, and then I was about 7 when it went off the air.
Right. Yeah, it was great fun.
It was such an amazing cast and hilariously amazing writing. I mean, Rich Hall is an underrated genius. I mean, he can do stand-up sketches, characters. I mean, he's a talented guy.
Which is great. We had really terrific writers. We were very fortunate. Our writing staff was probably one of the best in the business, and I don't say that because I was on the show. They really were. I mean, all the Simpson writers started on Not Necessarily the News. We had Mary Ornstein, we had rolled onto our show one of the first gigs we ever got. So we were very, very lucky. Very lucky. Yes, great writers.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that was great about the show was that you guys were so irreverent, yet you guys were never blue or raunchy, though you could have been because you had that platform of HBO cable, but you guys were just very witty and, dark, but, not raunchy.
No, that blue humor's too easy. I mean, our writers wouldn't stoop to there. We always taught in improv for the top of your intelligence, and so it's funnier up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's funnier in the high altitudes. The blue stuff is just easy.
Yeah. How long was the writing process and the shooting?
The writers would come in about 6 weeks before they started shooting and start writing, and maybe 4 weeks, and then we would shoot. We would be process. We were for 2 or 3 months and shoot all the sketches all the time, and then the show took place in the editing process, of course, because we were using a lot of footage from news sources that we got from ABC, I think. Wow.
Yeah, and you guys had this camera look about the show. It had kind of a public access feel for it. I like that, because it looks like a legitimate, local news station.
Yes, well, back then we were really trying to copy the look of the network shows. Technology's changed so much, and saturation of color and all sorts of stuff. If you look at the old NN10 tapes now, they look very kind of rinky-dink, but like the old SCTV, we're all kind of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But technology changes everything now. Flat screens, and so there you go.
That was a good look for the show, and two of my favorite moments in the whole show was this one that just still kills me. It killed me 30 years ago, and it still kills me. Seeing Ronald Reagan and George Bush enjoy a rap concert.
Oh, that's so funny. I don't remember that bit, but there were so many of them. We had so many of them.
Yeah. Oh, there was one where they were like showing a TV show advertisement of John Landis's Twilight Zone trial called. It was called Scott Free Productions presents who? Me?
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm so glad you enjoyed the show.
Yeah, that was so wrong, though.
Nice to hear. Yeah.
Let me ask you if you remember this. I think you had just gotten there. I don't remember. In 1985, Stuart Pankin, Ann Bloom, and Danny Green were in this low-budget movie called The Dirt Bike Kid.
Yes, directed by Boyd Caston.
Yes.
I was supposed to be in that movie with them, but
yeah, that's what I was gonna. Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. If why weren't you in it?
I think it was a scheduling thing. I think I got another job on something, but the film was directed by Boyd Caston, and Boyd Caston directed a number of the sketches from not necessarily the news. Very talented. He actually won an ACE Award, which was kind of that day's Emmy for not necessarily the news, and he got to do a feature film, and he asked everybody to be in it.
Yeah, I watched that movie from the time I was like 9 or 10, and I actually watched it last night. It's on YouTube. I used to have a VHS of it, but it's gone now. But I like that movie. It's a cute little movie.
Oh, I'll tell Boyd that. He would really appreciate it.
Oh, that would be great. That would be great. Heck, I wouldn't even mind interviewing him if he's on social media.
Sure.
Yeah. And then you did the short-lived series Charlie Hoover.
Yes. Very short-lived. I think out of 99 shows, we were 98.
98.
It had Sam Kinison on it, and Tim Matheson
Yep.
Omar, me, I can't remember who else was on it, but yeah, it lasted a little while, and then sadly, Sam was killed in a car accident.
Yeah.
But I don't think that wasn't the reason the show went down. It was just
it was already gone, I think.
I think he was already gone. Yeah.
Yeah, Sam made me want to be a comic when I was only 2 years old. I was just taken in by that scream. I didn't know what he was talking about, but I loved that scream. I was just drawn to him, and through the years, he's still my favorite comedian.
Oh, he would love that.
Yeah, I almost interviewed his brother Bill back at Christmas time because that documentary about him came out on I think Spike TV or something, and Bill had to cancel though. But I hope to get one with him real soon. I had a friend who interviewed him recently and stuff. But yeah, I remember that show, and I just thought it was so funny, that he's in Tim Matheson's head.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And he was actually a very sweet guy. He would always want to take the cast out for lunch, and he was a sweet man. He was.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the comedians I've had on this show, they remember him from his really dark period in the late '80s when he was on drugs and everything, and he was kind of.
He was still on drugs.
Oh yeah.
He was still on drugs on Charlie Hoover. That was one of the problems with the show. Is Sam had demons that he couldn't shake, and it was really sad. It was because he was so talented, but he lived life and burned fast, and he was a rock and roller at heart.
Yeah, he loved rock music. That guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but all the comics have told me that they just remember, moments where they're up at the Crest Hill house above the Comedy Store, and he would just, make all these outrageous claims while he was under the influence and just say all this funny, like, mumbo jumbo stuff that, like a Satanist would say, and ironically, he was a Christian.
Yes, very much so. He was actually a pastor.
Yeah.
He was a pastor first, and I think that's where his stage presence came from. From what I understand, in the beginning, he was a pastor. He sort of lost his faith, and but he took his talents as a pastor, and he started doing stand-up with it. And then I don't know. I think in the end, his faith came back to him.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I agree. That would be a fair assessment because, they say that, during his last moments, he saw God in those last moments, so I think, I don't think he ever gave up his faith, even when he was doing all that hard stuff. I think he struggled with it, but he didn't give it up ultimately.
You're probably right. Yeah, you're probably right. It was always there.
Yep. And you were also in a couple of primetime specials that Rodney Dangerfield did.
Oh, yes. I got to do a lot of Rodney stuff, and that was fun. I had a good time with Rodney. I got friends on the show, and I got to meet Bob Hope, of course, and George Burns, and some of the older icons that I really admired, and I spent many, times talking to Rodney and talking about comedy, and he was great. I loved him.
Yeah, I have all those specials on DVD along with his HBO specials, which is where I discovered Sam on those specials when I was a kid, and I just love them. It's part of comedy I miss today, like people like Rodney and Sam and all the others that were on there, when they were young.
There's so many great kids coming up, so that's the thing to look forward to about comedy is there's new ideas, and people are farming, new concepts, and you get to see a generation move on, and the stuff that we thought, was funny and that made you laugh, A new generation's got new ideas, so it's fun to see what's coming up.
That may be true, Lucy, but the guys who are coming up now, especially in my generation, they will never compete with your generation and the ones who influenced you guys.
That's so sweet. But you never know. You never know. I think that you can always be surprised. People tend to say, oh, there'll never be anybody like. Well, 200 years ago, I'm sure there was somebody really funny, and we don't really talk about them now.
Yeah.
But, life goes on, and there's always going to be funny people, and there's always going to be things to make you laugh, because that's part of the human experience, and that it's a release, like crying, and there's always going to be people that are going to discover things that are going to make other human beings laugh.
Mm-hmm.
We need that. It's very important. It helps you live longer. It is release. It's the way not to bottle up. It helps you release stress. It's natural. And so we certainly had a remarkable generation. There is no question about that. It's the way the jazz generation produced so many great jazz artists, with Dizzy Gillespie, Woody Herman, all these people that were having jazz bands at the time.
Yeah.
And we are very much aware that the 80s was an exceptional comedy boom. But it doesn't mean it can't happen again. It takes a lot of discipline, though. And I think that is one thing that this new generation has to come to terms with, and the millennials. It doesn't come easy. It takes a lot of work and a lot of discipline, and a lot of, when you don't feel like being there, you have to be there, and not just, I don't feel like it, I'll just, kind of walk away and walk back into it. It doesn't work that way. The harder you work, the better you are.
I know. I mean, my generation is just full of entitlement, and they just are lazy. And it's like, if you want to do this, you can't be lazy. You have to go out there and work hard.
Yes, there is a sense of entitlement in some of the newer kids. They just think it's going to come really easily. But, it's like anything. You got to work for it, and you got to be willing to stand out in the snow if that's what it takes to get a spot on stage, and not say, "Oh my God, it's raining. I think I got to go home." That's certainly not what we did. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is because it separates the people that are in it just to be seen versus the people that really want to make a career of comedy. Mm-hmm. It separates who's serious about it and who's not. So, yeah, that's what I would say to the new generation is be careful who you surround yourself with, and know that you've got to be surrounded by like-minded people that are as serious about it as you are, and you'll find you'll have your own generation of a comedy explosion.
Absolutely.
It can happen again. Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are words of wisdom from Lucy Webb.
There you go.
So,
there you go. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to ask real quickly, though, so what have you been doing lately, and since, your success years and everything?
Well, I've been in the wilderness a little bit, and I've wanted to be. I've been working on women's issues a lot. I spent a great deal of time at Women in Film. I was on the executive board there. I was a nonprofit organization, mentoring younger women. And now I am birthing with other women a new organization called Greenlight Women, which will focus on women over the age of 40, 45 when they start to get marginalized in their businesses, and people start to think, oh, we want to push this person out. They're pushing up on 50 and hire younger people. We're saying hire young people. That's fine, but don't forget that people at 40 and 45 now have a breadth of experience. They have seen a lot of railroad tracks. They now are more confident than they've ever been, and this is the time to utilize that and hire them. And as we fight for gender equality, we see that women over 40 are part of that gender equality. Just because you hit a certain age doesn't mean you're to be put in a teepee. You know, women over 40 and 50, they want to keep working. They're still creative. They still are vital. They have ideas. A lot of people want to work until their 90s. And we've had a woman that did her very first documentary, and she was 89 years old.
Wow.
And she did this documentary called Take My Nose, Please. And it's hysterical. There's a lot of stand-up comedians in it. But this was the very first thing documentary she'd ever done. But she had written for the New York Times, the New Yorker, and the Wall Street Journal as a journalist, and she'd written books. But she wanted to try a film. And so this was her first film. It just goes to show you that you can, there's no age limit, and that's being put upon us by outside forces, that one can keep working.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there can be an age limit in certain circles, but, if you push hard enough, you'll get done what you want,
Right.
Wow, 89.
So moving into a different sort of, I don't know, it's moving into a different field, another chapter in your life. And you're trying to rally a lot of these women that have wanted to keep working and have been kind of slowly marginalized and pushed out. Now they're all coming together, and I think it's going to be huge.
Absolutely, especially, we had, the Me Too movement start last year, and I think it has really empowered women a great deal, Well,
I think it's been a long time coming. I've been working on this issue for a long time, but certainly the sexual harassment part of it has, really exploded last year, where it just hit a tipping point where people said we're not going to get to any kind of pay equality or gender equality if men are allowed to come in and hit on women and pull their penises out and sexualize the workplace. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people have been hurt by this, and a lot of both men and women. Because I just saw that Louis C.K. was performing at the Comedy Cellar, and there's a lot of female comedians that are upset about that, and rightly so. Because if we let just everybody come back, like Louis C.K., like Ben Spacey, like Harvey Weinstein, then what was the point of the movement?
Right.
I think there has to be accountability, and I think there has to be I'm not saying that Louis could never come back, because Louis stepped up to the plate and admitted what he did wrong, unlike some other people who still are saying they didn't do anything when we know full well they did. But I think it's a little too soon, and I think there needs to be some more mea culpa before, we just let someone back on the scene and act like this never happened.
Right, and not to defend him or anything, because I think what he did was wrong, and this is a controversial statement. I never considered him a great comic. It's just my own personal taste. But I think one of the big factors is, and the same thing happened when Carlos Mencia was stealing jokes and Joe Rogan called him out on stage at the Comedy Store. These comedy club owners, they'll let anybody on stage if they're bringing in money, And I think in this case with Louis C.K., I think that's what's relevant and why it's happening, why they're letting him be on stage, because he brings in money and it's all greed, Well,
I think that, people cannot buy tickets. They can say, we're going to not go to that. It's selfish on many levels. I think the performer, by doing this, is going to hurt other performers performers, because if they want to perform at the Comedy Cellar and people start now not buying tickets to the Comedy Cellar, it hurts the other performers that did buy there. As far as Louis C.K. goes, you know, I think Louis is funny. This doesn't really have anything to do with his art. I think that one has to be careful when you have people out there that are doing sexual predatory sort of behavior. And I think he's a smart man. He's got a great mind, and he certainly knows better than to rip his private parts out in front of other women and, you know, succeed to the heavens, so to speak. He's a smarter guy than that. You don't do that. It's wrong.
Yeah.
And, period. And it doesn't take, even a sixth grader knows that.
Yeah.
So I don't think you just let somebody back in. And it's a sort of a sexual deviant thing. I think it's dangerous to let those kinds of people, you wouldn't put them around children. So, you know, it's a slippery slope that we're on here.
It certainly is. Certainly is. And all we can do is sit back and enjoy the show and see where it takes us. You know?
There you go.
See what's going to happen with him. But, Lucy, I thank you so much for taking the time today. I just
Thank you.
Can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this and how much I appreciate this so much. And
You're welcome.
And I wish you so much luck with all the women's rights things that you're doing and stuff. And
Thank you.
I'll keep up to date with them on Facebook and all that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you have yourself a great day.
You too. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Lucy Webb. Ain't she a sweetheart? Thank you so much, Lucy. I really did enjoy talking to you today and learning about your art, your craft, and your passion for women's rights and all that stuff. And I really appreciate it. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Add me as a friend on Facebook. Join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all the time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.